Good morning, everybody. Sorry about that. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the October 13th, 2022 Board of Selectmen meeting. And as always, we will stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. We're going to go right to the updates, and I will start them off with the first Selectmen's updates. We had a very successful Columbus Day this past Monday, the flag raising and also the dinner at the St. Lawrence Club, where we honored Dr. Anthony Oliva. It was a big crowd and a really a great time to celebrate Dr. Oliva and the heritage here in town. Yes, today is the last day of the Economic Forum, Greenwich Economic Forum over at the Delamar. I stopped by there yesterday for a little bit, and they're trying to expand, looking to expand it to other venues in the future. So that should be exciting for the town and for the forum. Tonight there is an 8:30 forum at the Knights of Columbus. I'm going to be sitting on that panel. We have some state experts as well as some local officials who were involved, have been involved with the issue with the legislature. So that's, I believe, at 7 o'clock tonight. Friday, the Japanese School Closing Festival will be held at St. Catherine's. And then later that night, we'll have the Greenwich Library fundraiser at the Berkeley Center at the library, and the Martha Graham dancers will be there. Saturday is the Pinewood Derby Social at, I'm trying to read my writing, at Miller Motor Cars for Greenwich Scouting. And Sunday we have the Ableist Walk, which starts at 9, the walk, and the run starts at 9, and then there will be some speeches and a presentation around 10:15, and then 11 o'clock we're going to do the walk. And then Monday, the 17th, I will be involved with an economic summit with Connecticut leaders at the Villages in Stamford. And that's an all-day thing, so I'm going to try and be there for a few hours. And then Tuesday, the 20th, is our annual UN Day celebration at Julian Curtis School. It's a lot of fun. If you haven't been to that, that's a fun event that starts at 1 o'clock. And then Thursday at 6 p.m., the Byram Fire Department will have their annual inspection dinner. They have it at the Appowamus Club in Rye, New York. And then the same night from 6 to 9 is the Treasured Tree celebration at Sandbridge Nursery. And on the 22nd, Saturday the 22nd, ISD will have their fundraiser at 7 o'clock at the Water Club. There's a few other ones, but I think that's the main part of it. So I'll turn it over to Lauren Rabin.
Thanks, Fred. Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited about our agenda today. The four of us that started the KPIs, the municipal KPIs for the town, I remember you, Ken, calling me. I was on my way to California to talk about it. So we started in June of 2021 and had lots and lots and lots of meetings, a lot of data collection, a lot of understanding what's possible. So I'm just really excited for the presentation today to the Board of Selectmen, my fellow colleagues. Also excited as liaison to Commission on Aging for the gift that we are going to vote on receiving. So it's just a great agenda today. I'm super excited about that. I am on the Central Middle School Building Committee. The committee has selected our owner's rep, and the next step would be to select our architect. We'll be starting to, I'm not a voting member, I'm an ex officio, but the committee will start to vote on that shortly. And that's my update for today.
Thanks, Lauren. Good morning, Janet.
Good morning, and thank you. Well, we're packing in the fall fun. I am looking forward to, on Saturday, the Old Greenwich School Pumpkin Patch. That's 11 to 4. Fingers crossed, there's no rain. I have to say, when you mentioned the Pinewood Derby, that brings back memories. My guys were both scouts. And I'm looking forward on Sunday to the Ableist Walk. I'm also looking forward at 1 o'clock. The OGRCC is hosting the Binney Park model sailboat regatta. That's always a lot of fun. And on later is the, yes, Go Wild, the Greenwich Land Trust at the Polo Grounds. Now, this is not quite as much fun, but I'm going to do it on Thursday. I will be coming in for my flu shot, and I'll celebrate by going to the Greenwich Tree Conservancy's Treasured Trees celebration. On Friday, from 1 to 3 is Neighbor to Neighbor Day. And then on Tuesday, September 25th at 7 o'clock, Greenwich Library is hosting Greenwich Reads Together. The author of Olga Dies Dreaming will be the featured speaker. And that's it for me.
Thank you. The regatta and the pumpkin patch, that's Sunday?
Sorry, the regatta is Sunday at 1. The pumpkin patch is Saturday from 11 to 4. I know, there's so many things going on, it's hard to keep track.
No, thank you. No, I remember the regatta's on Sunday, but I wasn't sure about the pumpkin patch. Thank you. Okay, old business, the discussion of public cannabis use. Barbara Schellenberg's here, our town attorney. Good morning.
So just to give a little background on this, what the state statute requires. For municipalities over 50,000 people, if the municipality decides to regulate the public use of cannabis, then the municipality has to designate a location in the municipality where public consumption is allowed. And they may set fines for violations by individuals regarding outdoor consumption of cannabis up to $50. So the question is, what does Greenwich want to do, if anything, to regulate the public use? I can tell you we did a little research on what's been happening with other municipalities who would be in the same category of over 50,000 people. Most of them have not made any decisions on that yet. Some have decided not to regulate at all. Some are in the process, like Greenwich is, of discussing it and are expected to come up with some decision at some point. We found one municipality, Milford, that has actually designated a spot in the city and is allowing the smoking of cannabis in public only in a couple of areas on a sidewalk. So that's just an example of what one municipality has decided to do. There are already regulations in place under the Clean Air Act. So in other words, wherever smoking of tobacco would not be allowed in public, automatically the smoking of cannabis is not allowed either. So I think that's just helpful to know, from the outset. But that's basically the background of what the statutes say, the laws say, what the requirement is.
Thank you. So I appreciate that, Barbara. So basically, wherever smoking is not allowed, obviously this is the conflict I spoke of. The other issue which concerns me is somebody smoking this to the point that they may get impaired, and the police don't, they stop them. We hear from law enforcement, what do they look for? And it's not like, it's a little different from alcohol consumption. So again, I think the legislature jumped too fast again on this one. I'm a little nervous personally about designating a spot when we have so much concern from our law enforcement professionals on this. So, I would go slow with, personally,
Yeah.
I would go slow with that. I don't know how my colleagues feel, but
Right.
certainly, if we don't regulate it, they can smoke wherever it's not. So I wouldn't want to go down that road, obviously, but I'm not comfortable yet until we get a little bit more guidance. I'd love to hear what my colleagues have to say, but I hear the police loud and clear, not just only in Greenwich, but all over, that are very, very concerned about this.
Right, and I know Chief Heavey has a concern. I mean, he expressed that to me personally, and I know you've heard it as well. I mean, I should also tell you that there's nothing in the statute, giving any kind of time limit or having a penalty for this decision not being made in being made in a certain amount of time. So, you certainly do have the time to figure out what you want to do with this, what direction you want to go in.
Thank you, yes, and I think we have an election coming up in a few weeks, and whoever prevails there will be part of our new state delegation. I think we're going to have to really speak with them also and let them know of our concerns with this and see if there's somehow they can push the legislature for some clarity. But I agree personally that if we're allowed some time here to not jump into it and do something where we may have to backtrack. So,
Right.
But I'll let my colleagues jump in now. Thank you so much.
Sure.
You can go first.
I mean, I am interested in restricting public use. I mean, if we don't, it's allowed. So by designating an area for public use, it's not like we are somehow encouraging or allowing something that wouldn't otherwise happen. I want to clarify for the sake of this discussion, when we're talking about smoking, we're also talking about vaping, is that right?
Yes,
Okay.
that's a very good point. And the Clean Air Act makes that clear.
Right. And I understand. Thank you. And I understand also there's a distinction between using and being impaired. But right now, we're talking simply about public use. We're not talking about trying to make a judgment about whether someone's impaired or not.
Correct. And obviously, if anybody's breaching the peace or something like that, we have those, the police has the ability to deal with a situation like that regardless.
Right. And again, this is more of a clarification, but I understand that where tobacco smoking is not permitted, cannabis use is also not permitted, but there's plenty of places where it is permitted, and that would include our local parks, that would include right up to the property lines of schools.
Correct. Right.
Right. So for that reason, and I appreciate that we're not talking, if there's an enforcement question, we're not talking about onerous fines. We're talking about up to $50. And obviously, our police department is fantastic, and they can use their discretion. They can give someone a warning before imposing a fine, obviously. So thank you for all the research.
Sure.
Like I said, I'm interested in introducing restrictions on public use. Obviously, if my colleagues are not interested at this time, then it doesn't make sense to go forward. But just for the record, that's where my interest is.
Okay.
I definitely want to hear what Lauren
Yes,
has to say on this. But just again to clarify, usage could lead to impairment. We've seen it in the past. So I just don't. If the police are telling us that they don't know what to look for, it could lead to that. And again, it's just something where I've seen it in my 11 years in Hartford. We've done things where we had to walk it back, and it didn't work. So, that's my concern, and I know the law enforcement community shares it too. So that's the reason why I personally want to go slow with this one. But
Well, again, just to give you a little more information, I mentioned Milford. I think that's probably why Milford decided to be so restrictive and is just allowing, this one place on a public sidewalk, and they actually have a sign which makes it clear this is where the use is allowed, and you have to be 15 feet away from the sign, and that's it. So again, that's an option.
is anybody monitoring that site? Because again, maybe it may come down to we may have to do that. But yeah, how long has Milford had that?
This has not been very long. It's been pretty recent that the Board of Aldermen up there, passed this.
Maybe call Mayor Blake
regulation.
too and see. But yeah, maybe we'll take a little time, see how it's working there, and then maybe we'll figure out how to monitor it. And if it's just one spot and the police are monitoring it, obviously, again, they're spread pretty thinly now as it
Right.
is, so.
No,
but yeah.
again, I just mention it as an option,
Yeah,
just
good.
so that you know what at least one other municipality has decided to do with this.
There'll be a blueprint there, so we'll take a look at it. Lauren?
Yes, that was I think, Janet, you mentioned, so if we don't restrict it, then basically you can smoke it anywhere today. Is that how I understand it?
Anywhere that smoking tobacco is permitted, right? So you're still going to have a lot of public places where clearly it's not permitted, like in restaurants and healthcare institutions, schools, that kind of thing, municipal buildings. But certainly, as was mentioned right now, you can smoke cigarettes in a public park, for example, so you would be able to smoke cannabis there as well. So, those are the kinds of things to consider, more of the outdoor spaces where you might want to restrict the use.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to think about where we would restrict. I know the captain is on. I don't know if you want to add anything, like what does this mean to our police force to not restrict it or to restrict it?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good morning, Captain.
Hi, good morning. Good morning, everybody. I see both sides, to rush into it, to attempt to, if we just stay back and, see what the legislator says with more guidance, because we're reading up on the law. And we also looked at if we did have to give a public space, the chief and the command staff had an idea where this space would go. And I don't know if anybody wanted to hear it, where we could probably try to keep it out of sight, out of mind, but it's a public space where somebody could go and we'd hopefully be able to control if it got out of hand with broken windows theory with many complaints and things like that, with different people hanging out there.
Thanks, Captain. Yeah, that's exactly what we'd like to hear is just a plan at the ready in case we have to do that, because it may be the least of the two evils, obviously, for those of us who have a concern about it. But something, as long as we can monitor it, and as you said, you brought up the broken windows theory. That's a good analogy.
Thank you.
Is that an idea that you can share at the moment?
Yeah, sure. We could absolutely share it. We were thinking, Grass Island over there has the public dog park, and there's some space over there. And it's not really residential per se. People complain about the smell, and it's one way in and one way out. So if there was maybe a single parking space dedicated, sort of like Milford did, was just one little area, we could absolutely regulate patrol-wise, one way in, one way out, and to see where, monitor it on a frequent basis. And it really wouldn't be in an area where there'd be a lot of foot traffic and stuff like that, and where residents would complain, because that's one of the things a lot of times residents complain about the smell, because it smells a lot different than a cigarette, and some towns have been getting. So that's one of the ideas that the chief had with the command staff, would be somewhere on Grass Island over there.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll get lots of emails now from people over on Broad Road and, but anyway, we'll see. I mean, when we did the dog park in 2000, it took us 5 years to get the dog park, and we're looking at another one now. I think we're getting close, but people in that area did not react very well to it. We made sure that none of the concerns were ever came to fruition, thank God. But I'm sure people will have some thoughts. So thank you, Captain.
I was personally, I was thinking, and this isn't as exciting, but behind Town Hall, and it's been suggested to me, maybe in front of the public safety complex.
You can keep an eye on it.
It would certainly be easy to, exactly, it would be easy to monitor.
I could see the headline now with Grass Island, so now that you put it out there. Good catch.
Ken was taking notes.
All right, thank you, Captain, and thank you, Barbara.
Okay.
I appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
Sure.
Okay, we will circle back, and then this is, we made some progress, so thank you.
And thank you for taking this up to have a discussion, and I look forward to where we go with this.
Well, thank you for bringing it up. Okay, Going on to new business, I see our friend Steve is here, and Laurie, about the acceptance of a $2.5 million gift to the Friends of the Greenwich Senior Center from the estate of Mary Louise Wallace. And again, our Commission on Aging Chair Steve Katz is here, along with Laurie Contadino. Morning, Steve.
Good morning, everyone. And I'll, this will be kind of a little bit different from my canvas. Okay, very good. All right, good morning, everyone. So hopefully this would be a feel-good story. At least for me, this has been probably the best feel-good story I've seen since I've been a town resident for 30 some odd years and 10 years on the Commission plus on Aging. Mary Louise Wallace was an 82-year-old Riverside resident who spent most of her adult life in Greenwich, and she passed away in January 2021. She was the only child of Jean Wallace and Dr. Robert Wallace of New York City, and she was a retired English school teacher from the Beth Hill school system. She had a strong interest in her students. She mentored many of them to become school teachers, and she had a love of animals and a love of the town of Greenwich. In her will, Ms. Wallace requested to leave the bulk of her estate primarily to assist older adults in the town of Greenwich, and especially those who are income constrained, to age well and remain in the town of Greenwich, as well as secondarily to assist income constrained older adults to care for their pets, and directed the trustees of her estate to seek guidance on how to best allocate the funds from the Commission on Aging. As a result of extensive discussions that I've had with the trustees of the estate, Ms. Wallace's trustees have agreed to give $2.5 million to the Friends of the Greenwich Senior Center on the condition that these funds will be accepted by the town prior to the end of this calendar year and given in supplement to existing renovation funds from the town of Greenwich and the Friends of the Greenwich Senior Center for the complete renovation of the lower level, first floor and entryway of the Greenwich Senior Center located at 299 Greenwich Avenue to a high standard and in an expedited manner. The naming rights for the decedent to be approved for the renovation of the interior spaces identified and for the Senior Center program. The naming rights would be for a term of 15 years per the Town of Greenwich guidelines, with a plaque placed on the outside of the building by the front door and by the reception with the following wording: Mary Louise Wallace Center, Vibrant Living, Purposeful Aging, lower level and first floor, and the Greenwich Senior Center will be referred to as the Wallace Center, Vibrant Living, Purposeful Aging, and a logo will be designated for the new branding. In addition, and outside of this meeting, the estate has provided that if the town accepts this gift for the renovation of the senior center, they've agreed to provide that the remainder of the estate, valued at between $1.5 and $2 million, will be given to the Friends of the Greenwich Senior Center for new, not to replace existing, evidence-based programming with proven outcomes that would benefit older adults in the town of Greenwich, especially those who are income constrained, so that they continue to age well and reside in the town of Greenwich as a primary objective, and to assist with taking care of pets for older adults who are income constrained as a secondary objective. These two gifts would be game-changing from a public health perspective for all older adults, and especially those who are income constrained in the town of Greenwich. It aligns perfectly with the Commission on Aging's mission to improve the quality of life for older adults in the town of Greenwich through planning, coordination, advocacy, education, and senior center programming, and our vision for a community of engaged, informed, and empowered older adults that have access to resources that support independent and enable successful aging in our community. It would be a capstone to our age-friendly official certification, which we anticipate receiving in the spring of 2023. This is a time-sensitive item for which I ask your support.
I want to thank you very, very much for all the work you did with this. I know it was a long haul, and you've, working with the people who are overseeing the estate. And, having been in a couple of meetings with you, I know how much work you did in this, and it means a lot to everybody. And certainly, we're very grateful to Mary Louise Wallace for her foresight and for really caring about the elderly and those with pets. So I think that hits home with a lot of us. So thank you.
I provided all of you with a budget of how this would be spent. In total, if you look at the budget, the budget has in it her $2.5 million. There's $300,000 from the state for the activity room, and the Friends has remaining in it a little over $400,000. So in total, for this project, if it were to go forward, it's, a little over $3.2 million for the renovation of those spaces on the lower level, the first floor, and the entryway. And if you've seen the senior center, we've been doing this now, I don't know, since I've been on the commission. When I first got on the commission, the goal was that we were going to move the senior center, and, no one was really going to do that. So we went on a very extended plan of now, a 13-year plan to renovate it. And it's still kind of a bit, politely saying shabby, right? So the goal of the estate really was to say, can we have a first-class senior center in the town of Greenwich and do this renovation work? This is a good example, I think, Fred, of your example of a public-private partnership of how these things really work and how we, if we do the right work, we can get funding. And I think this is kind of a good example of how this actually, can really work in reality to actually achieve those objectives and improve a town asset substantially.
It's an absolutely beautiful building, the old town hall. There was a courthouse in there. There was a jail in there a long time ago.
I think Lori wants to borrow us from the jail.
Yeah. We have we got to do naming rights for that too. But this would really match up the interior with the exterior in a beautiful part of Greenwich Avenue. So again, I can't thank you enough for the work you did on this.
Yeah, echo the thanks, and I don't know if folks remember a few months ago, I met with Lori and James Doherty, who is now the chair of Friends, and we were looking for some new board members with fundraising experience. So what a gift to have received this. And if the headline's true, I read that Connecticut is the third worst state to retire in. So the fact that there's an expectation, and the folks that, go to the senior center might be income constrained, that we're really, solving a need in our community. It's just super exciting to me. It's a no-brainer. It checks so many boxes, and thank you.
And I echo that. I'm grateful to the estate for this gift, and I am thrilled for the senior center. I look forward to more of great programming coming from the senior center.
And thank you. And Steve, and so you mentioned this was time sensitive. Usually we do 2 reads on this, but certainly you wanted to get this a vote on this today.
I mean, from my perspective, ideally, I would love to get it today because I would like to get it then moving before the RTM.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm okay to waive it on this one, and I know Janet's going to be a stickler, but that's okay. That's good though. You keep. I'm okay with voting on it now. I don't know. I haven't spoken to Lauren about it, but
I'm okay voting. I don't see what we'll learn in 2 weeks that would, change our minds.
but be consistent though.
I like consistent, practice of best practices. This is a tough one, though, because there's just no way that I want to be seen as not supporting the senior center. So if you all are waiving it, I'm going to have to go along.
I'll give you a pass.
It's for a good reason.
Okay.
No, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and thank you to my
Okay,
two
thank you.
colleagues.
So, Lauren Rabin, I motion that we accept the $2.5 million gift to the Friends of the Greenwich Senior Center from the estate of Mary Louise Wallace.
Janet Stone McWigan, I second.
All those in favor, Fred Camillo's a yes.
Lauren Rabin, yes.
Janet Stone McWigan, yes.
Thank you all, and again, thank you, Lori, and thank you, Steve, and to Mary Louise Wallace. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have a presentation of the key performance indicators for the 2019 Plan of Conservation and Development. We have our Senior Management Analyst, Dan Carlson, here. Morning, Dan.
All right, good morning. Good morning for Selectmen, Board of Selectmen. Thank you guys for having me up here. So as Lauren mentioned, this is a long time coming. We're here to talk about the key performance indicators for the 2019 POCD. So the action that we're requesting from the Board of Selectmen today is to provide feedback and recommendations on these key performance indicators for the 2019 POCD. So just a little bit of background for everybody. The POCD was published on November 15th, 2019, with the overriding goal to protect and harness the town's historic heritage, natural landscape, and topographical diversity while addressing the challenges brought on by growth, climate change, and technological advances. So the role of the Plan of the Conservation and Development is to guide individual projects and studies, as well as to better coordinate and prioritize future improvements. Now, this 2019 POCD, it's organized around 6 guiding principles, which serve as the foundation of the plan. They establish a unified direction for the POCD, which every objective and action step is linked. And so one of the major aspects of this plan is that is to develop key performance indicators that measures the quantifiable progress of specific objectives outlined in the plan. And through that, we had a committee established to identify these KPIs, and it consisted of Town Administrator and COO Ben Branyan, Select Woman Lauren Rabin, Director of Planning and Zoning Katie DeLuca, and myself. So through this selection process of KPIs, we had a general approach that we tried to stick to. The first one is we wanted to identify and select KPIs that are simple, easy to measure, and within our ability to accomplish. KPIs should also be measurable over the life of the POCD. This is a 10-year document, so we wanted to make sure to capture data that could kind of be measured over the entirety of that document. We also wanted to make sure to understand what the POCD is trying to achieve by each guiding principle and identify KPIs that could measure the achievement of each. We also wanted to avoid measuring just for the sake of measuring and identify items that are important, not only to residents, but to staff as well. And we also wanted to watch for duplication of data already included in other reports. There's a lot of great information out here and produced by departments, and we didn't want to collect data when it's already available in other forms if we could help it. Now, so once we developed the an outline of the KPIs, we wanted to bring this here. After that, before that, we had a meeting held with Planning and Zoning for further feedback and input. And the final step before publishing the final draft of the KPI is to present it to the Board of Selectmen here and the Planning and Zoning Commission for final feedback and recommendations. And so after final approval, these KPIs will all be published on the town website for public consumption. And each KPI will be monitored and updated on an annual basis and will be published at in the spring of each year. And so for this current iteration that we have right now, we have 17 KPIs across the 6 guiding principles with about 2 to 4 in each category. And I can just quickly go through the list just to get everybody a flavor of what we have going on here. So for the first guiding principle that we have, that is preserve our community character and sense of place. So that is what the first KPIs are focused on. And the first one that we have is historic preservation, and we measured annual historic building demolitions. As you can see, for every one, we have the specific key performance indicator as well as the data source that we got this information from. So for here, historic buildings are defined as any structure that was built in 1940 or earlier. And as you can see here, it's been relatively flat over the last few years. The next one that we have here is the Greenwich land cover by type. This was really a focus on impervious coverage in the area, and Greenwich is actually 17.58% impervious coverage, with about half of that residing in a floodplain. The next guiding principle is the public art installations, and it measures the number of public art installations. As you can see, this number has stayed flat over the course of measuring here. And then after that, our guiding principle number 2 is to develop housing opportunities to the future, for the future. The first one is a focus on affordable housing, and it measures the percent of 830G affordable housing, which I know is a very hot topic. And so this is measuring our goal of getting to that 10% of affordable housing. As you can see, it's been relatively flat, but slowly rising. Next, we have the housing stock, which measures the percent of homes, single-family homes versus multifamily. As you can see, there's been a small decrease in the single-family and a small increase in multifamily over the years. Then we have the housing stock, which is measuring the percent of single-family homes by property value. This one's relatively interesting because it shows the houses on the lower end of value has been decreasing in the past year, while the houses on the higher end of values has been increasing. So we're seeing more of those higher end houses within town. Guiding principle number 3 is the support top quality educational facilities. The first one we have is public school transportation and annual bus ridership. What's really interesting to see here is the impact that COVID has on the annual bus ridership. You could really see the dip over those course of years as students worked remotely and had to deal with the impact that we all had to deal with during the pandemic. Next, we had the residential buffer space, which is the average tree coverage percentage. School landscapes are really designed to create a buffer space between the surrounding homes and school, and they utilize trees and plants for that. And as you can see, the average percentage is 27% on school properties in town. Guiding principle number 4 is to sustain and improve our natural environment and landscape. This is a 8-minute walk. The percent of population that lives within an 8-minute walk of a park or open space. And so the industry standard is to live within a half mile of a park, which does equate to that 8-minute walking distance. Next, we have the annual water consumption in town, broken down by residential, commercial / public authority, and Greenwich government. And as you can see, most of the usage is under residential. After that, we have open space, which is measuring the percent of open space throughout town. This has stayed relatively flat, but there's been a small increase through the years that we've measured. Guiding principle number 5 is to maintain economic vitality and thriving commercial centers. And the first one we are measuring is traffic congestion, which does play a major impact on the economy. And we were measuring the number of cars registered per person by election district. And it should be noted we had to use the 2010 population for this. The 2023 population by district will be out in 2023, so that will get updated then. Next, we have the downtown parking improvements, which is measuring the number of employee parking permits. It should be noted in 2021, the Board of Selectmen itself approved a policy to remove the distinction between residence and merchant parking passes, and that's where you can see the real increase in usage of that based on that policy there. As you can see, there's kind of a theme. We kind of want to utilize all this information to see if policies that we have in place are working, or if something's not necessarily working, it's something that we could look into. Something like the bicycle infrastructure, which is the next one. The miles of share in Greenwich, there's actually 0 miles of sharrows in Greenwich at this point. Obviously, it's not the best data set we want, and we want to look to improve that, but we know that creating a bicycle-friendly town here is very important to the residents and for staff and for elected officials as well, too. So we thought it was still important to measure, even though we don't have any currently. Next, we have the office vacancy rates in town, broken down by central business district and non-central business district. There's been a kind of a fluctuation over the course of years, and again, there's probably a big impact that the pandemic had to do with that type of stuff as well. And the final guiding principle, last but not least, is to provide the best quality infrastructure, municipal facilities, cultural institutions, and health services. So the first thing we wanted to measure is some town property best practices, and the first thing that we measured is the annual electricity usage in the town facilities. Again, an impact on the pandemic, you could see a lower usage in electricity in the calendar year of 20. It's kind of bounced up a little bit in the calendar year 21. But the plan of conservation and development, it does call for the town to reduce the energy consumption by 20% in the short term, which we've identified as 5 years here, and 40% in the long term, which is a 10-year period. And the last KPI that we identified is the number of AEDs in the town facilities. And this includes town facilities and parks. As you can see, this has stayed flat over the previous 2 years. And then the final piece of the document in the packet today is just the data collection and information schedule, where it shows each of the identified key performance indicators, where the data is coming from, the general parameters, a time period of when we're going to be collecting this, again with the goal to publish this each spring with the refresh data from the past year. And I just want to give a quick shout out and thank you to everybody that worked on this. It was a very collaborative effort. I appreciated all the input from everybody, and happy to answer any questions and other concerns from the Board of Selectmen at this time.
Thank you so much, Dan. This is terrific. It's a lot of great information here that we can use going forward. Just a quick question. I know what the averages are covered here, but for example, where it says natural landscape sustainability, and we're at 17.58% impervious coverage, what would be the goal there?
So there's not necessarily a goal per se. These are an indicator to see of where we're at. So if we have 17% of impervious land cover, we may want to look at improving that. If we're having flooding issues, specifically, we outlined that half of the impervious cover is in a floodplain. So maybe that's an area where we want to focus our energy, is to maybe relieve some of that area, remove some of the impervious area from the floodplain area, if that's feasible. So it's really of a conversation piece and a starter to start looking into what direction we should go into, and it's to drive policy, not necessarily it's a means to its end for measurement.
Sure. Okay, thank you so much for the clarification. And another question on, look at the housing stock page, and we look at two-family homes decreased from 2020 to 2021 by about 28 or so. Is that just, you're finding they're just converting to single family? Because there's not, I know there's not many multifamilies going up. So I just wanted to see if that was the case, that they're actually converting.
Yeah, I could certainly look into that. If you could see, on the first page, there's been, in calendar year of 18, there was 71.74% single-family homes, and that's dropped down to 70.17%. So that's a roughly about 30 homes or so. So there's a slight reduction in single-family homes. In terms of the percent of single-family homes by property value, I think it just kind of shows the property value increases that we've seen due to the real estate market increases and everything for that.
And then Fred, if you look at what increased 2020 to 2021 is the number of apartments. So those are like, so the 2 and 3 might have reduced, but the 4 plus, expanded.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's interesting how that happens.
Yeah. There's a lot of things to uncover from this data. It's a lot of layers and a lot of directions you can go in with this.
Interesting. Thank you. This is valuable, especially as I'll take this with me tonight. We talk about 830G.
So I'm going to echo my thanks to the committee who worked on this. I'm a self-described policy wonk, so data is really important. I do have a number of questions and observations. So you said that these indicators would be displayed on a website. Is it going to be like a dashboard of sorts?
Yeah. So the way that we thought about it is we'd have them broken down by each guiding principle, and then each key performance indicator would be almost like a little button there. And so as soon as you clicked on that specific button, it would go to this page that you see printed here, and then, it would be layered kind of that way. So that's pretty much what we thought, but, open to interpretation as well with that.
Thank you, because it's all about how easily it's understood and displayed. And I'm looking, and clearly some of these indicators are going to be flat, but others show quite a bit of change. So, those are the ones that are obviously very interested, we'd be interested in tracking. I do have a question. Did you all reach out to the Energy Management Advisory Committee when you were coming up with these indicators and numbers? I know that EMAC is tracking town electricity use. So I'm just curious about if your numbers match up with their numbers.
We didn't reach out to them directly. We obviously looked at their reports that they published and everything, and again, to see what they were measuring versus what we were measuring. And I do know that they, are tracking energy consumption, I think, by its British thermal units, BTUs. And the reason why we neglected to go that way is because, they're tracking it as well, too, so we already have that data point that's going to be published at this point. And there's a couple missing data points, like for some they would miss, we didn't have the data for propane usage or some things like that. And so we
exactly.
wanted to make sure to have the same data piece throughout the 10 years, and we know we can capture electricity over the 10 years. So that's really why we kind of elected to go the simpler route.
Exactly. Well, I would encourage to continue to follow up and reach out to them, because I do know it's a challenging exercise trying to keep track of these numbers and making sure that they're accurate. I'm also interested, similarly, EMAC is very interested in the number of electric vehicles in town. So I'm wondering if that's some kind of subset data that you could include, in addition to just the number of vehicles, if we could look at the number of electric vehicles. And then I note with interest, the impervious surfaces in town, the area. I know that the State Department, I'll call it DEEP, is very interested in pursuing stormwater authorities, and that authority would be tracking that data. So it would be really interested in making sure that that's something that is clear and available. So thank you.
Great. No, thank you very much for the comments. We'll certainly look into those.
Yeah, I think the thing about the electric vehicles that's just that I'm reacting to is one of the things that we tried to do is like what can we control, like, sort of as government. I'm not sure. I mean, I know it's probably interesting for the committee to track, but as a KPI, like what we wanted to do is everything needed to be actionable. So I don't know what we would do as a government entity to encourage or discourage people from purchasing electric vehicles. I think we talked about the EV charging stations, because that's sort of an enabler and something we can control.
That's exactly the point, is that EMAC is very much interested in, where the town is citing EV charging stations. And it's a question of cart and horse. No, maybe the town might not be able to control the number of EVs in town, but certainly by tracking that number, you could see whether the town EV charging stations is encouraging that, those kind of purchases.
Okay, no, this is good. I know we're going to get some more ideas and comments on this today in a few minutes also as we go on, but this is good. And yeah, it brings up things like, if it's 17.58% of our land is impervious, to Dan's point, how do we, maybe we start looking at ways to get that down a little bit more. And I know that's something that planning and zoning has looked at too, when we get these building applications, and, do we require more green space? Because the frequent floods are coming more and more frequent, and the infrastructure is dated, and that's in every town. So it's going to be, that's one of the most important issues I think we face, really, is infrastructure and impervious surfaces, in our landscape. So very helpful.
All right. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Okay, and we do have, speaking of KPIs, I know Bob D'Angelo is here, would like to come up and say a few words, and thank you, Bob, for doing some work here and giving us some of your thoughts, which I read and I think are pretty good.
Is it on? Okay, great. Thank you. My name's Bob D'Angelo, Greenwich native and member of the First Selectmen's Bike Task Force. Like Fred and Lauren, who were lucky enough to grow up here, we have great memories of riding our bikes all over town to play sports, go to the beaches and parks, and see friends. I salute and thank the Board of Selectmen and all the dedicated town staff and volunteers who had the vision and dedication to generate the POCD and KPI indicators to make Greenwich a better place for all. I also salute the town for hiring of Michael Kiselak as the traffic engineer, who we hope will move toward the complete streets policy of a shared roadway community for all users. The Bike Task Force next week at the Bike Task Force meeting will make recommendations for funding requests and a game plan for the next fiscal budget cycle that increases safety and makes progress on micromobility issues. We have a great opportunity to make immediate improvements and set groundwork for long-term vision. The upcoming Post Road/Route 1 Connecticut DOT project near Greenwich High School represents a real opportunity to begin the goal of a true multi-user path in the center of town that can link Greenwich High School to parts of our community. The state has approved the design of the new bridge to be wide enough to support a multi-purpose path that the task force believes must emanate from both sides of the bridge, west towards Overlook/Mallard Drive, crossing the Post Road to GHS, and east towards Coscob. The new Cohen Eastern Civic Center will be a spectacular source of pride for the community, and now is the time to plan for and implement bike infrastructure, parking, mechanic station, and safe passage that links all users to and from that center. Now is also the time to plan for bike pedestrian infrastructure for the new Central Middle School design and actually go one step further to have a forward vision and goal to imagine a young person in the Coscob area being able to ride their bike, scooter, or walk their entire school career to Coscob School, Central Middle School, and Greenwich High School. An immediate idea for the Sharrow KPI indicator. I was excited going through all the KPIs, and then I got to the Sharrow thing and just saw just a bunch of zeros up there and just got deflated, but we could fix that. We can get on that. An immediate idea for the Sharrow KPI indicator would be to paint Sharrows at Todd's Point to maximize safety cueing everybody to expect bikes, vehicles, and pedestrians. We are blessed to have incredible parks in Greenwich that offer opportunity for multi-use paths and recreation. Many of the KPI indicators, safety, preservation of character, economic vitality, congestion mitigation, the environment, health and wellness of our kids and adults, riding a bike plays into all of those. It really does. It's a proven fact that all towns and cities in the USA that have invested in bicycle infrastructure and micromobility are attracting young families and thrive economically. We have a great, exciting opportunity to do the same here. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bob, and I'm going to be I know we'll be reaching out to everybody in the coming weeks, and you will be too, but I'm going to make a copy of this and drop it off to DPW, Parks and Rec, our friend Tony Turner, the building committee. Yeah, no, it's just, again, I'll highlight everything. I'll do that right after the meeting.
We're going to put up some wins in that Sharrow thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, and that's a good point. Like, we weren't trying to pick stuff that we were good at. You know, we had to understand what was important to us, and the fact now that we're tracking it and it's public, then, you know, as Dan said, then change could happen. If it wasn't even on there, nobody would be able to see how zero it was.
It's an exciting time for us, and I think we have the players, aligning. We can make progress in this. We're going to do good on this.
Yeah, and I love the idea with the parks and the beach. I mean, that's made to order for that.
Yeah, I think we can do that. The Sharrows are a good start, and I think a great place immediately to see some benefit and raise awareness would be at Todd's Point.
And I know, off topic, I know that I spoke with Vin that you guys are working on picking a few parks where we have trails to get a bike path right next to that. I think that's so doable.
Bruce Park, right?
That's so doable. That'll be huge. Thank you so much for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Bob, for your advocacy, the task force advocacy. I didn't grow up in town, but I certainly bike around the Greenwich Point, and I would love to see this needle move a little bit.
Yes, we'll get there. Thank you so much. Okay, public comment. Don't see anybody here or online.
I'm here.
I'm sorry?
Margarita's here. Hello?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, okay, Margarita, I'm sorry, I skipped over 6C.
But did
My
Margaret-
new,
was
my new
Margarita
eye
speaking?
lenses are not working yet.
Did
but-
Margarita want to speak on the
So,
KPIs?
Fred, while you're dropping off those copies of the KPI things, could you leave one with the commission? Because I wasn't able to find it online before the meeting. It wasn't posted, and this has not been sent yet to the commission. So
I will drop one off.
just.
I'll drop a
Yeah,
few
no,
off.
just joking. I'm sure you guys are gonna get it to us, but just to try to answer your question, and I'm working without data. You asked about two-family homes and multifamilies. A really interesting number that I came across recently is that over 60%, 60% of the lots in Greenwich are zoned for either two-family or multifamily. And that, as you all know, the R6 zone, two-family is as of right. So someone can just convert their unit, their dwelling, from a single family to a two-family without any further ado. They just get the permits and go ahead. So although we've lost some of the two families because they've been converted to other things, we've also seen an addition of two families and some legalization. There are people who want to, for example, there were a few that became small 830Gs. So that's a shift. But so if we want to enable two-family, we already have.
No,
And
quick question. When you say they can convert to a two-family now, over 60% of lots can do that. Those are in R6 and R7 zones, R6 zones?
Just R6.
Yes.
Just R6 is as of right
Yeah.
two-family.
Right.
And that is 20% of the lots in Greenwich.
Okay, yeah, that just
20%.
to clarify, because I don't want people in the single-family zone thinking they can do that.
No, the single-family
Okay.
zone
Okay.
is, we're looking at how to modify the accessory dwelling units
Yeah.
for the single-family zones.
Okay, thank you so much, Marguerite.
That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll get this over to you.
Okay, Fred, may I just make a
Yes, sir.
clarification, please? Margarita, that agenda packet does include this KPI report. It is online. It was posted earlier this week.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Barb. Okay, last item in new business is the street closure request for Sound Beach Avenue on December 3rd, 2022, and we have our friend Rich Fulton with us and the Greenwich Merchants Association. Is that Marco with
Morning,
you?
Freddie. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you.
Great, and we're old Greenwich. I think you said Greenwich Merchants. We're old Greenwich
Did I
Merchants.
say old Greenwich? I thought I said old Greenwich, maybe I didn't.
And I have
Rich.
Marcos Torno here as well.
Marcos, how are you? Good to see you.
Good, thanks. You?
Hanging in there, thank you.
Good.
Appreciate your time this morning, and glad to answer any questions or kind of give everyone a quick summary of what we're up to this year.
Yeah, you have the floor.
Okay, so it's our annual First Light celebration that's been going on in Old Greenwich for over 20 years. It's always the first Saturday in December, so that's December 3rd. About 10 years ago, we sort of on the fly closed Sound Beach Avenue in the middle of the event with the Greenwich Police Department's help because the attendance had sort of gotten to the point where it wasn't safe to have all of these intersections still open. So we closed them that year, and then since then we have sought your office's permission to close the 4 different intersections with GPD and traffic division, and then obviously with the chief's office. So we're seeking approval for that again this year. Freddie, as you're aware, had a great conversation with the chief about 2 weeks ago to ensure proper coverage for our event this year. We recognize how stretched the police department is this year with officers during the holidays, especially with the Board of Ed requesting additional coverage at schools. So we were delayed in our request because we wanted to make sure that we weren't taxing the department, but at the same time would have proper coverage. And the chief came up with a great plan, which we'll share during our permitting process. And then to make everybody aware, the process or permits are being handled again by Parks and Recreation. Last year, there was a pause in how paperwork was handled. It went through Traffic Division, but Parks and Rec is handling the paperwork again, so we'll get all the proper signatures, provide proof of insurance, vendor waivers, that sort of thing. So everything will be the same as always.
Terrific. Thank you so much. We're looking forward to that, and we're we usually do it. This is a first read, so I mean, I think we're all good with it, but we'll respect the process.
Well, I would say absolutely follow the process, except that this is something that has been repeated year after year, and we know, it's
perfect.
It's not our first rodeo. I'll give a shout out
Sure.
that the McWiggins love First Light. When my boys were active scouts in Troop 9, they would help on the night, and it's just a family favorite. So thank you for all you're doing.
Perfect. Okay, well, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Then we'll do a.
And
Vote
maybe
no.
as a board, we should clarify what we really want a first read on, because I don't think we ever intended that every single thing that came to us would be a first and second read. So maybe we just need to, amongst ourselves.
I would agree with things that are routine, that are annual. I don't think need second reads. I mean, but other things that are coming to us for the first time that we're deliberating, definitely, I think we would want second reads on.
Yeah, I think if
Perfect.
we're just clear on it, because the folks that are bringing stuff to us aren't always, they don't know. So I think we should be clear.
Yeah, and we always have the ability to waive it, even if it's one of those things that we normally would. So we could certainly circle back and make sure it's clarified.
So Lauren Raven, I motion that we approve the request for a street closure on Sound Beach Avenue on December 3rd, 2022, from 5 PM to 8 PM.
Janet Stone McWigan, I second.
All those in favor? Fred Camillo's a yes.
Lauren Raven, yes.
Janet Stone McWigan, yes.
Okay.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank
Appreciate your
you.
time.
Rich and Marcos, thank you so much. Have a great
And
day.
please stop by on the 3rd.
We'll be there. Absolutely.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Good deal. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, bye-bye.
Take care. Okay, it's coming up. I don't see any more people here to comment unless someone raises their hand. Any appointments or nominations?
Nope, not
None today, so with that. Oh. Okay, the floor recognizes Claire Kilgallen, who's joining us virtually.
Good morning. Just a quick comment, and thank you for the CD KPIs. I was just noting something that I observe in a number of different reports throughout the town, so it's just a global comment. When I was looking at the bus information, it covers 4 years of ridership, but there's no notations to reflect that during COVID, there were limits on the number of students riding the buses, and parents were asked if they would have their children not take the bus because of the number of children per bus and wanting to thin it out. So I'm just mindful that those kinds of things are really important when we're looking back at numbers so that we're comparing apples to apples, similar to something I saw through EMAC where they're talking about the usage of a building, but there's no notation as to whether something like GHS operates in its opening hours, is open many more hours than any other school building. New Lebanon was used as a summer school, was open for many more hours than schools that were closed for the summer. So I think those operating days on that particular piece need to be taken into account on the EMAC reports, but I think it's really important to have those kinds of footnotes for proper comparison. Thank you.
Thank you. Good point. I know Dan had mentioned it, but doing an actual notation on it makes sense, so I appreciate it. Thanks, Claire. Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Lauren Raven, so moved.
Janet Stone McWigan, I second.
All those in favor? Fred Camillo's a yes.
Lauren Raven, yes.
Janet Stone McWigan, yes.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Barb. Thanks, Jenny. Thanks, everybody, for attending.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep working on those. Take these copies now.
No, they should have it.
Oh, no.
Running past.